Hi guys, and welcome to No Bravado. Today we have a special guest with us, Denise, who will be talking to us about her child abuse story, her triumph and her survival. Hi Denise, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Natalie, for inviting me.
So you're here today because of a Facebook post that you made. So tell us a little bit more about that.
The Facebook page, the status I made about he's dead, that was directed about my father.
Okay.
He passed away a month and a half ago.
Okay.
And it was almost like I was trying to say that he died, but I didn't know how to feel. I didn't feel happy, which I thought I was going to,
Yeah.
and I didn't feel sad. And this is because of child abuse.
Okay. So you said it's about child abuse, and so that was from your father.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So when did the abuse start?
The touching started when I was 7.
Okay.
It started to get worse when I got to about 9. That's when he used to really touch me, wanted me to touch him back. By the time I was 13, that's when he started to have intercourse with me.
By 13.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. How did you feel? So even as young as when it first started, did you know it was wrong? Was you told before that that's not right, or did you just kind of have that
I remember
feeling?
when I was 9,
Yeah.
you don't know it's wrong. I knew I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I remember being 9 and wanted my mum to tell him to stop. And she just closed the door on me, told me to leave the room, stop lying, and close the door on me. I can remember being 9 and crying and crying and crying. I just didn't like what he was doing. But no way did I think it was something he was doing that was wrong. No.
Okay.
No.
So it's like your kind of subconscious thought, I don't like this.
That's right.
But you didn't really know at that age that
It was
this is
extremely uncomfortable. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that. So I know you said that mum do you think that mum didn't believe you, or did you think mum struggled to kind of come to terms?
Now, I feel that it was easier for her to be in denial.
Right.
I can only think now as a mum and not a child. I can't imagine her not believing me.
Yeah.
Her way of cutting me out and telling me to leave the room and stop telling lies, I think was her way of not dealing with it, or she loved my dad that much that she didn't want to hear it. But it's difficult for me as a parent to quite understand that now.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a parent now, that must be like a really
It's very
hard
difficult.
pill
Yeah,
to
it
swallow.
is. It is, because being a parent, nobody comes before my child or my grandchildren.
Absolutely.
So, but I suppose at the time I was a child and not knowing why, but it was almost like, I'm not lying, and somebody's telling me you're lying. So I stopped talking about it.
That must have felt really lonely at that point.
Absolutely.
When you've kind of gone to your mum about this and she's kind of shut it out almost. So that must have been like a lonely experience.
I think the worst bit is being called a liar.
Yeah, I can imagine. At such a young age as well.
And then I think she must have mentioned something, because after that I can remember my dad's always saying, shh, shh, shh.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it, don't say anything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, being called a liar, I think that stayed with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And how long did that kind of go on for? How did that progress?
It went on to, as I said, when I started to find boys interesting at about 13, that's when my dad started intercourse.
Okay.
He got me pregnant at the age of 14.
Really?
And both of them took me for an abortion. That was the first time I had to stay away from school for 2 weeks after. And I remember going to school and thinking, I don't want to be with those people anymore.
Yeah.
And I can remember telling the headmistress that I didn't want to go home anymore. And that's when I was taken into foster care.
Okay.
And they used to ask me, you know, what it is at home. And I just used to say, my dad used to touch me. And my dad got me pregnant. For some reason, they didn't sort of think that was a massive deal, apart from me staying with somebody else. I liked staying there because they were a different culture to me. They were Jamaican. And two things. The food was different, and I loved it. And the foster mother, she used to hug me.
Okay.
And I never used to get hugs at home.
Okay.
So for those two reasons, I liked being at that house rather than my own.
Okay. It's interesting that you say you didn't get hugs at home. So that, would you say from mum?
From
that
both.
was from mum, from both. Do you think that was had anything to do with the abuse? Do you think she struggled with it? Because it sounds like she kind of struggled.
I was the other woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I wouldn't have understood it then.
Yeah.
But what she did, I had siblings. From the age of 7 to the age of 13, my mum had babies sort of every 2 years, 18 months.
Right.
And she just devoted herself to the young ones.
Right.
So it was almost like she hasn't got time for me because she's got 2 lots of children in nappies and things like that. And then, as I said, my last sister was born when I was 13.
Right.
So she didn't have time, supposedly, for me to give me the attention.
Yeah.
But I think she pushed herself into the kids so she didn't have to actually deal with me. So, no, I didn't get hugs.
Yeah.
The only time I felt hugged or touched was by my father,
Right.
which wasn't hugs.
Yeah.
But unconditional with this other lady, she used to just cuddle me.
Yeah.
And I used to think, wow, that is such a lovely feeling.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something I was familiar with.
So that was like a different kind of warmth that you hadn't had yet.
Yeah.
And that was nice. It's like she was almost sent to you. That is lovely. So getting back to, say, your father, was there any repercussions for him with regards to law, or was he charged? Did anything happen in that respect?
Let's touch on, I suffered, I think, by the time I was about 21, 22, by that time I had a child. I suffered with, I call, mini breakdowns.
Right.
Didn't understand what they were. They would come out of the blue. I had a privileged lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any problems. I wasn't in an abusive relationship or anything like that. I had a job. And one part of my counselling was to go, they didn't understand child abuse. It wasn't actually called child abuse. It was just, I think, was just abuse in the home. And at the end of that counselling, it was to actually face my perpetrator.
Right.
Which was my father, and I was 35 at that time.
Right.
And I went to him, he was living in America by then.
Okay.
And I remember going to America, and which I made him pay for the flights, which I wasn't going to pay. And after about a week of being there, I asked him, why did he ever used to touch me when I was little? And he said to me, well, it didn't make it difficult. And I said, I was 7. I said, do you not ever think why I'm not married? And he said, what you're trying to say, is it got anything to do with me? And I said to him, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And I think at that time, Nelly, I wanted to hear, I'm sorry. I wanted to have a dad.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear, I'm really sorry, I was bad, I shouldn't have done that. I think that would have taken away some of the pain.
Yeah.
But to hear him say, you know, you didn't make it difficult, and then he started to cry, I was like, don't need to hear this.
Yeah.
And I walked out the room.
Yeah.
I think he made things worse for me.
Right.
And as I said, after that, he spoke to my mother, who lived in England, and my mother rang me and said, how did I go to America and start talking about this? what kind of nonsense is going on. And I said to her, you knew about it. And she argued with me for about 40 minutes. She doesn't remember me ever telling her. Nothing to do with what happened to you, what did your father do. So I just said to her, she needs to leave the country. Because she was a churchgoer. And I said, if you ever stay in England, I will go in front of your congregation and tell them what kind of woman you are. I said, there's women out there can't have children, and you're just making children for this monster. I said to her, you need to leave. Eventually she did. And again, after that, I had bouts and bouts of depression.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2016 I got the counselling directly for rape and sexual abuse.
Right.
And it was with those people, my counsellor's help,
Yeah.
she started to bring me out.
Right.
Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm explaining certain feelings that I was going through most of my life. Explaining to me that, I'm a survivor. That's the first time I ever heard the word survivor. And after about 6 months of that counselling, there's another section where you can actually report historical abuse.
Okay.
And that came out after Jimmy Savile.
Okay.
They started to have this other section. So I did. And that was sort of late 2016 into 2017. And yes, they found enough evidence. They took a year of interviewing people throughout my life, getting all my medical records, speaking to every counsellor I ever spoke to.
Yeah.
And they had enough to take to the CPS to convict him. However, he lived I believed in America at the time, but he actually lived in Trinidad.
Okay.
So it wasn't enough to extradite him back, but he was served
Okay.
in Trinidad.
Yeah.
And I had a letter, and all I really wanted, because at that time he's sort of late 70s, he's in 80s,
Yeah.
I just didn't want him to go to the grave
Yeah.
thinking that it was all right to what he did to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a thing about putting him in prison, it was people going to know who you are.
Yeah.
I didn't keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
I've spoken up, you are now on the sexual register.
Yeah.
That is what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's why I put that article up about he's dead, him being my father.
Yeah.
And it's mostly awareness to other people that you can get help.
Yeah.
There are places that will believe you.
Yeah.
And I think the first time somebody looked at me and believed in every single word, that took a lot of, I would say, feelings from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think most of the time it was my mother always explained to people, oh, I'm a attention seeker, nothing like that ever happened. Funny enough, people believed her.
Right.
But it wasn't something that I went out shouting to the hill. But if I spoke to any of the member of my family, that's what she would say. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if that person believed me or her.
Or her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you was probably just trying to. It's almost like, if a child gets kidnapped and if they find someone and they're trying to kind of give them a signal, like, help me. So when you was talking to those other family members, it was almost like someone hear me.
Yes.
And kind of hear what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I know that you were saying as well that when you went into foster care,
Yeah.
you kind of you eventually told them why.
I told the headmistress.
The headmistress
Yeah.
why.
I don't know if she told my foster mother. My foster mother never spoke about
Never
it.
spoke about it, okay.
No.
So do you feel like more should have been done then because you were still a child?
In comparison to what there is today,
Yeah.
I believe in my time it was quite belittled.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of incest going in my time,
Okay.
but it wasn't support for children.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't have a support for what my parents were doing.
Yeah.
There was still this thing is, they're your parents, because
Yeah.
they kept asking me, do you want to go home to your parents?
Yeah.
And in my heart,
You're like, no.
they're not my parents.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I found there were just two people, because I felt more love going sleeping around my friend's house and waking up and their parents was making breakfast.
Yeah.
And the way they spoke to me and the way they cared about me, you know, what toast do I want or what breakfast do I want?
Yeah.
I felt that they cared about me, and I liked being with my friends' parents than I did at home.
At being at home.
Yes, and once I left at 16, I never, ever, ever went back into that home.
Oh,
never.
Gosh.
Put another foot back in.
I can imagine.
No.
And you look great. You speak
you.
about it so
Thank
kind of
you.
well. I know some people, they don't really come out of it the other side. I think that's why they call it survivor sometimes. What do you think it is that has really kind of helped you? Because you look like a tower of strength.
Oh, thank you, Lily.
If you ask me.
I think reporting him and having enough evidence and having some proof.
Yeah.
It was almost like saying to the world, see, I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Another reason why it's difficult for people to believe, my father is or was immaculate.
Right.
From head to toe.
Right.
Very well loved by the community in Dalston at the time.
Okay.
So because of, you know, he was into the raving scene, everybody knew him.
Yeah.
And it would be not Dennis.
Yeah.
You know, I could not be, maybe it was a little quiet man in a corner, they probably would have believed me, but it was almost like, not him.
Yeah.
When I had enough, when they came back and they said they had so much evidence, Detective CPS, it was almost like, see, I wasn't lying. And I think that was a turning point for me.
You felt vindicated.
I felt I'm so special now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. Thank you for sharing your story. We would like to know, how has it shaped you as a person? Like, has it impacted your future relationships after that?
Well, I would
you
say
must be trust issues. Or,
yeah, I did. And that's the trust issues, because I only knew I had trust issues on my last lot of counselling.
Right.
You don't realise, you just think that's just normal. My trust issues was not trusting, well, it definitely started with my son's father.
Yeah.
He wanted to marry me. When I got pregnant, he kept telling me he loved me. I had no idea what that felt like.
Right.
I had no feelings.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I really belittled his feelings.
Okay.
I knew that I didn't want to be married because I saw that as another trap. I'm going to belong to a man again.
Yeah.
So I said to him, well, I don't want to be with you, but you can have your child.
Yeah.
And only now do I realise how he must have felt.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe when men said, I love you or I really care. To me, there was nothing to feel.
Yeah.
I now understand that they say that's nurturing, feeling loved. I can love you and show you love, but feeling love comes from nurturing as a child.
Right.
When you pick up a child in your arms, when it's crying, or a toddler, you nurture them and you make them feel safe and loved. Because I didn't get it, I associate with a man sex.
Right.
In a relationship, if you want to keep him happy, you give him sex.
Right.
I didn't know how it felt to a man to tell me something and me not to walk away from something. So if he upset me, I could just walk and go on to somebody else.
Okay.
So trust issues, definitely. Although men are my best friends.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, men are my best friends, but I think in a relationship, that's where I never used to know. I felt unlovable.
Okay.
I think because I didn't know what love felt. So when I had girlfriends saying, oh, my boyfriend really loves me, but I did not know what they were talking about.
Right.
How does that feel? How do you know?
Yeah.
Is it because he just told you, no, I feel loved? I never had that. I never had that feeling. I would say now, the last 10 years, completely different.
Oh, well, that's
Completely
good.
different.
That's so good.
But I love me first.
And that's brilliant. I want to end on that happy note. And your story is, like I said, it's like, oh my goodness, and just to see you how you are and how you kind of speak about it, and even your last kind of words just now, it just shows that you can kind of get
Well, I
through that.
realised how I could have been. After my last counselling was a group counselling with other survivors, and they were going through, some were people had drug issues, alcohol issues, you know, people being prostitutes, and I thought to myself, wow,
Yeah.
God's been so great to me.
Yeah.
Because although I had depression, I'd never had any other real issue, apart from buying clothes every minute.
Oh, I've got that issue as well.
That's about the only thing. But no, I think I'm one of the blessed ones, I have to say.
You definitely are. And again, I really, really want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for letting
really
me
appreciate
come
it.
here and speak about it, and hopefully help other women out there to know,
Absolutely.
you know, they're not alone.
Yes. Thank you, Denise.
You're more than welcome, Natalie.
Okay.
It's a subject that men find hard to talk about, but as being a specialist, why do you think men find hard to talk about it?
So one of the things that we have to, what you mentioned about the patterns in the cycle, so often men won't want to speak about the fact that they were abused.
Okay.
So as a young man growing up, and it could even, it's not necessarily that men are the abusers, sometimes there's females, and it can be from their own mothers. So there's...
Without sounding confused, so you like, are you saying on the level of mothers requesting sex from their sons?
Yes. Yes. Or old, yep, and older sisters, siblings. So if there's a pattern of abuse within the family, it's not normally just from starting from that, from this part of the story. It might have gone down about 5 generations before that. And then because of that, if you think about how far, when paedophilia and all this stuff, it's only really become very much a talking subject in the last
it's been
few
on the
years.
carpet,
Yeah, but before that, if you think about how many people are coming forward now from generations where it was like kind of normal, like, okay, yeah, well, we can kind of do stuff in the house and no one talk about it and we keep that secret. So it's again one of the things for men not wanting to be a victim. So and there's a big thing about being victims. So even females or anyone that's gone through something like this, sometimes it's that feeling of being a victim. So it's not necessarily, it's the shame, but it's the feeling of being a victim and feeling like, why did this happen to me? You kind of blame yourself. So at that point, I've spoken to a lot, especially young girls, and they've got this thing like, I'm not going to be a victim. But it's not that you're a victim because you survived it. But the whole society has made the word victim be something that, a sorry, a pity. Okay. But actually, in the eyes of the law, you're a victim because something's happened to you. Something's happened to you. It's not that you are someone that, oh my gosh, like, oh, you're weak, you're this. But we've changed the terminology of victim. And actually, victim's only been there because it's a perpetrator and a victim, and it's for the law purposes. But we've changed what victim is. So within ourselves, we then feel like we're a victim, and it's a bad thing. But actually, you're a victim, but you've survived it. So it's how we change that terminology that helps people to then be more empowered to speak about what they feel. Like I haven't spoken to loads of people that will be like, I'm a victor. And it's like, yes, you're a victor because you overcame something. But in those moments, and through what society initially was showing was, if you're a victim, that means you're weak. So for a man that's gone through that, you don't want it. It's like, I'm not having that. I'm not weak. Like, so you're going to bury that, and then you're going to, as a boy, don't cry. You're not allowed to show emotion.
We have got a saying in No Bravado that you've got no bass in your voice, so we totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Denise, can I ask you, do you know any of your father's history? Do you know if he might have suffered that?
No, neither of them, my mother nor my father. It was only told to me through counselling it's a possibility that it happened to my mother, hence why she went into denial and she thought, just get over it. So, but no, and I'll be honest, as growing up, I detached from a very young age of knowing a lot about them.
Denise, I know you went into depth with Natalie about the situation, but was there a pattern? As in, what I'm trying to get over to the viewer is was there a certain time? Was there a certain Like, would he go to the pub? I'm just trying to give people kind of points to feel out for. Was it like if he was angry with his mum, he'd come and see you, or if it was a thing he was drunk, he'd come and, or did he just have a routine that at this time this is me?
Yeah, he did have a routine. My father was, I'm going to say, smoked weed.
Okay.
He drank. On a Sunday, he'd have friends over, play dominoes. He's a very sociable person.
Typical like West Indian background family. Yeah.
Exactly that. Now I can see the pattern. It started when my mother got pregnant. There was a 7-year gap between me and my next sibling.
Okay.
And I don't know if my mother went off sex or he wanted more sex and she did have sex with him. But it will always be, she worked nights, and every time I could remember hearing the door close, all his friends have gone, and him walking up the stairs on a Sunday mostly, and I know he was coming for me. So there was, if he wants to put it down, he could probably say it was the marijuana, the drink, or my mum being pregnant.
As I said, it's a bit difficult because I know you had your interview, like your separate interview with Natalie, and obviously Trish has spoken to you. But as for me and Jay, we're trying to feel it out without being too deep, too personal.
You can be as deep as you want.
What I need to establish from the situation here is your dad was the abuser. You became pregnant.
Yes.
Did he stop at? Did that make him stop at any point, or did he continue?
That was the last.
Or once you made.
I was taken away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was taken away at that point. About 2 weeks after the abortion, my parents, both of them, took me for the abortion.
Back to the specialist. Do you find like dramatic situations cause men to stop this behaviour, or will they just continue depending on who he is?
I think it just depends on the situation, because in Denise's case, like she said, she was taken away. So, like initially the shock of, and actually now it's out there, like your partner, your wife knows that you've impregnated your child. So at that point, it's like, well, that's going to be a shock in that moment. We'll deal with the situation. But if Denise had gone back into the house afterwards, who knows what would have happened?
Oh, I did for about 6 months,
Okay.
and then I left. Yeah, I got a job, but when I finished school, I got a job. And funny enough, I missed my siblings. I didn't miss my parents, but the feeling came back, and a friend of mine, we found a house, and there was like renting a room, and I got out of there. But I would say when I was 35, he did proposition me again. He asked me if I wanted to go into bed with him.
Wow.
When I went to visit him in America. So I don't know. I don't know what that comes under, because I always thought they only like children.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because if paedophilia is, young children, what would be the mentality behind someone to keep going?
And it's the thing is with paedophilia, sexual abuse and paedophilia are two different. Yeah, because
her started at 7, that's why.
and it's the link of it's her dad.
Right.
So whatever his link to Denise, and obviously I don't know him, I can't generalize for him, but there was something about Denise. So so there was something, so whatever he's seen in his past, or whatever where he felt that it's appropriate, that actually as a parent I can do that with my child. So but with paedophiles, that is specifically for young children. They are, that's so by a certain age they're getting rid of you. So and then they'll move on, and it's a thing. So it's like obviously I don't know what's happened to your sibling, but the fact that you were 35, that goes to show again it's sexual abuse. But paedophilia is but they did, but to me and to a lot of things, it all hands in hand in the sense of there's inappropriate behaviour, and there is a mental illness within that, and it's wrong. And why is it that because from the moment you touch a child, you
You're
are
broken.
someone that could be you are classified as a paedophile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But he did then want to continue that, so there's another element of what was going on for him.
Right.
Would you say there was an element of control, like to see if he could regain that control that he had?
Again,
we don't know,
know,
but I'm
but
saying.
I think me and Denise, we had a conversation outside, and there were certain things that you mentioned that sounds like for him, it was more about not necessarily. I don't know what his relationship was like with your mum was like,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure
Sure,
how
dynamics.
that element of the dynamics, but he definitely had something about Denise.
Well, you did
And-
mention once to me, I can remember my mum had me at 18, and as I became near to a teenager, I was like my mother.
Okay.
I was growing like her. You remind me of
Yeah.
your mum. And he has known my mum since they were 13, 14 in Trinidad.
Okay.
And what was the age gap?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know, speaking to you, I think what really struck a chord with me, and the person, I know it sounds crazy, that stands out to me in this story is Denise's mum. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm a mum, so I'm struggling to get my head around it. But all of it, yeah, the allowance, and then taking her to get an abortion with him, and then staying with him after that.
So it's sorry. Actually, no.
So I just, obviously you don't know her mum,
Yeah.
you've never met her mum, but in those type of situations, I think mum was burying her head in the sand. She just couldn't deal with it, or she loved, as you said, her dad too much.
She overloved my father.
Yeah.
I mean, she divorced him for an affair he had, but she wouldn't divorce him for me. And although she had a husband,
Yeah.
as you know, he only passed away, was that 5, 6 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and she went to the funeral. And she's married and got a husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so she still had that connection
Mm-hmm.
with him. And like I said, they were childhood sweethearts. And my grandmother, her mother, always knew there was something wrong with him.
Right.
She brought my mother to England to be away from him. My mother saved up, sent for my father, and as soon as she was 18, they got married.
Okay.
It was him for her.
Always,
Yeah, she put him first all the time.
What,
So
what,
at the time of the abortion, did your mum then accept that your dad was the father?
She never asked me. She never asked me. She knew I was pregnant because I don't know if you know much about, when there's women in the house, we all have periods at the same time. And it came to a time where I wasn't asking for no sanitary.
Sanitary showers.
Yes. And then she asked me, but she never asked me who it was, whose it was.
did you think she was frightened to lose him more than anything else? Because
I
it's.
think I've always been seen as the other woman.
Mm.
I think she saw me as, why is my father attracted to me? You know, I don't think she was frightened to lose him because, as I said, she divorced him when he started to have affairs. But she definitely treated me, and still does, as the other woman.
Because it sounds like something we discussed on one of our previous shows when we said about why do mums and dads stay in marriages that ain't working. But old school mentality, you come to England, you build something together, and you work at it through thick and thin. From what you explained to me, it sounds a bit like that, but obviously with the sexual content to it. So her denial, what it sounds like from what we explained, is not only because of you, it sounds like the whole package. If I highlight this situation, I might lose the house. So it sounds like a bit of everything in one, and where do you turn? But obviously, when he's having affairs, that's reason enough in the black community to
And I
say,
was already out the house.
right,
that's
yeah,
the picture,
it was already accepted that when you're having affairs, you leave him.
Are they
But-
Christians? Your parents?
My mother is still a practicing Christian, goes to church, yes.
Could be the shame.
Yeah,
It's a shame.
That's where I was going with
The
that.
shame of it.
If it's more common knowledge that your husband may cheat on you with another woman. So if you leave your husband for cheating on you with another woman outside of the household, well, the wife's not going to be the first, it's not going to be the last. But there's a stigma that my husband's chosen his daughter. So I think that's part of the reason why.
And
Well, it's a
that's
shame, is it? Like, do you know what I mean?
and the thing is, it's also the fact that with Denise, that can be kept in house. The affair outside is public.
It's probably
People, there's someone else
What
that.
happens behind closed doors?
Yeah, this is it. And it's so what you said about the whole, like even today, it still happens. People will stay
In marriages,
marriages and stuff, and there's this whole stigma about if you're a single parent, that's a broken home. But actually, the broken home is when there's a family that's not working, and you're trying to constantly bring back the glasses that shattered and keep passing it up and up. And that's the thing that we don't know how to shake that off.
So you find there's more cases coming out now?
Yes, and I think what we do learn is that the teaching is different now. So there's been more serious cases where you see things like parents using private parts as nicknames before. It would not be that you would say the private parts, so you wouldn't, can I say the names? But you wouldn't say, oh, this is your vagina, or this. You would be like, Mary, this. People would use nicknames. And one of the things that we had a case where the little girl came home, she's primary school, and she came home saying, oh, teacher was touching Mary. But so the parents were just thinking she's playing with another child. But they forgot, they taught her that name. And it wasn't until one day it came out, I think she was having a bath, and said, oh, my teacher touched Mary today. And they were like, wow. And they were able to see that actually it's the names. It's like, that's why they say to parents, actually say to your children their body parts. Let them know what their body parts are. Let them know that actually no one should be touching. I know my kids, when they first started going places without me around, I was like, okay, let's have this conversation. No one's meant to touch you in areas that, the way I don't touch you in places, so no one should be touching you in your vagina, your breast. We had those conversations because it's not had enough. So if my children know, actually know, because a lot of people don't know it's wrong at the beginning. Especially if you're coming from a parent, if your parent's doing that to you, then hang on, these are the people that teach you. They're the ones that are meant to provide for you. So, okay, it might feel wrong, but who's to tell that young person that's in that environment that that's not okay if they haven't learned it? And it's not until they start being around other people and they start thinking, actually, maybe this isn't okay. And then you have the conflict of, depending on the situation, you have where someone might then get pleasure from it and it's not because it's their fault, but that's what happens. And then you have that guilt, actually, but maybe I liked that. And you have all these kind of questioning yourself. So it's just that if we teach young people from the moment they're able to understand that actually, no, I don't do that no one should be touching you. So if your child goes out and they say, and someone does, you come back and you tell me. It's not okay. If someone tells you that to keep it a secret, we don't keep secrets. And then sometimes as a parent you might tell a little white lie. So then if you're telling a little white lie and then someone tells your child, oh, actually, little white lies are okay. So it's just about how we actually teach our children, because it's all about conditioning, and we're conditioning our children from the moment we let them out into the world, because they're learning from us.
As we're on this point and we're trying to reach out to people who's been through it and are still going through it, and we're trying to spread the message that there is help out here. Denise, in your case, for example, say, if he came in and, interfered, trouble, if he came in and troubled you once, would he do it again in the same night? Or would he sleep with you overnight as we're big grown people at the panel, would he sleep with you as a girlfriend, or would he just do what he had to do and leave the room and leave you there, or would he?
When I was a child.
Yeah, when I was a child.
No, what he would do, I shared a bed with my little siblings.
Okay.
So he would lift me out of my bed and bring me into my parents' bed.
Okay.
And then he would put me back to bed.
Oh, so he never ever slept to you overnight, or?
No, it's
always just for one incident. And
my parents' bed, yeah, because my mum used to work nights.
Okay.
And your siblings are
in the bedroom.
they boys, girls?
At the time, I had 2 sisters and a brother, and I was getting my sister, who would be nearly 9 years younger than me. She came after my brother. She was 14, and she was just starting to come round and babysit for me, and I was about to ask her if my dad was doing anything to her, and unfortunately she got cancer, and she died 3 days before her 50th birthday. So most of the talk was about her sickness. My youngest sister, she was too young. By the time my mother divorced my father, my youngest sister was 13 years younger than me. She would have been still very, very young, and he left England and went to America at the time. So I'm not sure if my sibling, my sister sibling, was ever touched. I don't know. I didn't get to have that conversation with her.
Wow. It's quite intense.
One of the prevalent things that I've picked up as well is that even when he was talking, he was like speaking about breasts and vaginas, but the conversation has to be had with our young boys as well.
Definitely.
From what you're saying, it's common that young boys are abused, and that's how the cycle
definitely
starts.
And I run a co-found a community interest company, and we had some young boys from primary school come in, and we do debates and we have conversations. And one of the things we put up was, do boys get sexually abused? And you go to agree, disagree, not sure. All the boys went to disagree. One boy said, not sure.
Right.
And this is because we talk about the females, like what you said, but we don't talk about the boys.
Right.
We don't say to boys, actually, this is what's okay, this is what's not okay, this is what's okay, healthy relationships. And I think there is a thing where we think boys are more robust. We just kind of be like, oh, he's like, he can handle more. You might show your son more than you would show your daughter. We kind of wrap our daughters in more cotton wool than we would our boys. And I don't have boys as sons, but I know that I've watched people, I work with young boys, I have young boys that come to sit with me, and I have therapy sessions with them, and then no one speaks to them about that. They're allowed to have emotions. They're allowed to, it's not okay that they have to be okay. They don't have to be okay all the time. I have young boys that are going through things that they do not want to say, because they're saying, like, everyone thinks why am I even complaining about this?
Right.
Yeah, even interactions, interactions with girls, and girls being inappropriate with boys.
Yeah, because that can be confusing.
That can be,
I watched a podcast where a guy was saying that when he was like 5, he was brought up by a girl who was 9, but he didn't feel it was abuse because he enjoyed it.
Right.
That's
But still, it's
But some boys don't like it at that point, because they're like, well, no, especially if you're going to the person's place that's not being given permission for. But if a boy did that to a girl, that'd be a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
So there is this whole, like what you were saying before, like for men and for boys, there isn't enough conversations about what you guys go through and what people go through, and emotional conversations. And that's why there is the taboo of mental health with men. Because you've had to, why wouldn't someone then explode when they've had to bury so much?
Tell you what, it's getting, I think we're going to have to do a section for the men alone, because
I think that's a good idea.
because as it stands now, if you are watching and you do feel uncomfortable and you need help, you'll see details and you can contact various groups, and we'll make sure that the information appropriately put out there for people going through. I didn't know it was so deep. I think coming from a very bass line family, as in you got to have bass in your voice, you don't think about things like that because you've got that kind of.
But even that comment about you've got to have bass in your voice, that's
it's the
thing.
same.
Yeah, it's the same
But
thing.
coming from that kind of background, I could see somebody who hasn't got bass in their voice and keeping.
I've heard so much stories about, in Jamaica, Barbados.
The family insisting,
This is it.
Well, when I went to Trinidad, to visit my grandmother, exactly, I spoke to somebody, and they said she said it casually, but it's so rife in Trinidad, like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't anything, but it's so common.
So you think it's one of the legacies, like, that's been brought over, like, you know?
I think either one of them could see it not really being wrong. Yeah.
And
It's interesting, it's interesting you use the word legacy, because abuse then becomes our legacy in our relationships. That's
Definitely.
going to have an effect on absolutely. It's going to have an effect between the man and the woman. It's going to have an effect emotionally. It's going to cause broken relationships. And again, this is one of the reasons that we want to speak about it, so that we can encourage some healing and get to the root of why we are so broken in our relationships as a community. Because abuse is going to affect. Like you said, there's a 7-year-old self. So we do have to wrap up, because I have got to wrap up. But have you got any advice for Denise's 7-year-old self?
do you know what? You have done amazing.
Thank
The fact
you.
that you stood up for yourself, even though no one was listening to you when you became 9, and you stood up for yourself, and you didn't stop. Even it might have taken how long to get to the point it did, you stood up for yourself and you fought for yourself, and that needs to be acknowledged, that you're a very strong girl.
And without, just to add to it, one thing I have noticed, Denise, when you do talk about it, you're always smiling, and it gives that sense of like, it's okay, You're not. Through the whole of the conversation, I watched you. You've been smart every time you speak. Even the hardest parts you spoke about, you have a smile at the end of it, like to say.
I think I've grown into myself, and I realise, as you said, about being a victim, I'm now a survivor, and I put myself in a pedestal, even though my parents never did. And I just say, you know, life is tough because I have my really low times still, but yeah, I think to myself, I am a survivor. And the greatest thing is to know that he's gone in his grave, knowing that I no longer
As we say, we keep it real around here.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
welcome.
Denise.
Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.